to another episode of the Fanzone podcast. Your home for all things Bolton Wanderers, up the Trotters, the Northwest's #1 podcast.
Well, tonight makes for an interesting proposition. Stockport County 5, Bolton Wanderers 0. Bolton on the edge of desperation at Edgeley Park whilst Dave Challoner's County stole the show. And just 4 days earlier, Wycombe Wanderers paid a visit, putting 5 past the side with only 3 changes to the side that faced Bolton. After 6 wins and 1 draw in 8 league games, it did look as if Ian Evatt might have finally turned a corner, or at least started to. But by his own admission, it felt like all of that had been undone after a humbling defeat on the road. There's plenty to discuss. Is time up for Ian Evatt, or is there still time to turn it around? And you can have your say live on tonight's episode of the Fanzone podcast. But on that note, a very, very, very warm welcome to you all this evening. The live chat is very busy, which I must say, we did expect. It's usually the way after a defeat and after a disappointing, to put it lightly, performance. That is usually how things go. And of course, joined this evening by Ben, Cole, myself, and we've got a special guest in Daryl. How are you doing, mate?
Yes, I'm very well. Thank you very much for having me.
You are very welcome.
When I say I'm very well, it would be nice to be joining you after a better result, wouldn't it, really?
Yeah, absolutely.
It was, yes. For those of you who are watching live and listening along at home afterwards, you might recognise the voice. You may well have heard him on The Wanderer when that show was out. So it is a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you for joining us. Very, very appreciated.
Thank you. The second best Bolton Wanderers podcast that you guys host. It's nice to join you.
That gets mentioned quite a bit, that David Wheater reference point, doesn't it? People bring that up a few times. Oh.
Yep.
Unfounded. Unfounded. It's technically false advertising. I mean, I could.
It is, yeah.
I could make a complaint. I've chosen not to, but I could.
In fairness, we didn't give David Wheater a script. He did it off his own.
We didn't. Yeah, that was completely off his own back.
Just like give us your true feelings, mate.
Yeah, exactly. It was after he joined us as well, so it was by his own admission.
Yeah, it's opinion.
But all of you in the chat, there are plenty of you. Like I said, Brandon, a good evening to you. Pete, Jordan, channel members, Laura. It is a very, 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 very happy to have you with us this evening. If you want to become a channel member, then for just £3 a month, you can get emojis like Colin's lovely face. He looks a little bit happier in the one that we've chosen than he has done in recent weeks. But if you want to get your hands on those, then head over to our YouTube page and you can find out how to do that. But we will digress no further and we will jump into our post-match reactions.
Jeez.
Colin, I think if we don't go to you first, you might explode. Would you like to fire away? Just remember, we're not past the watershed, but how did you find yesterday's game?
Colin, can I just, while you do that, I need to plug my laptop in. I've just realised. I thought I'd just interrupt now and do that now. Otherwise, I'm going to disappear. So just forgive me. I'm just going to nip off and do that. Carry on.
No, of course. Listen, I'm not going to say anything that I haven't said in recent weeks. To be honest, it's just reaffirmed my belief that Ian Evatt is no longer the man to take us forward. I've said it before. I'll refer back to the Huddersfield game when I saw him on the touchline, bereft of ideas. I thought to myself that after that game, it was past the point of no return, and he basically couldn't handle the job. The job was too big for him. He looked lost. And yesterday, once again, that happened. And that was probably the worst one of his tenure. And it's untenable now, I think, in the most part. I couldn't see him turning it round. I didn't see the wins against these mediocre best teams that we've beat in recent weeks as a turning point. I never saw that. My point was the litmus test will come over the course of the next few games, and we've of course got Stockport, Blackpool, and Wigan. And obviously, I know we've got Cambridge wedged in between that, but again, that's one of them standard games. And he's felt at the first hurdle, as to use a racing analogy. Just simply not good enough. I don't want to jump on Arsenal Fan TV's reference point, but it's time to go, as that gentleman once said. Awful, appalling, disgraceful. Yes, the players are at fault, but it stems from the manager. Stockport, they're not a great side. They play well in their way. They obviously, stifled us, I suppose, early doors and scored at a vital time after the second half started. But when we strip it back, the mentality of the players is weak, and that comes from the manager and his coaching staff. They can't handle the big games, and it's absolutely pathetic.
Strong words, but ones that I think are fair all the same. Disappointing is the politest way I think we could put it. And I think a lot of fans share those frustrations with you.
Listen, Ben, I'll say it again. I've said it for you've been on this podcast for a long time with myself. You kindly invited me to join it many, many months ago. And I really wanted Ian Evatt to succeed as Bolton Wanderers manager. I will continue to back him whilst he's in charge by supporting the team. I don't want him in charge of the football club anymore. We need a new change. We need to change direction. But I want to reaffirm, I really, really, really wanted this to work, but it's not working, and it's time for a change.
Yeah, and I think me and Ben used this section of games as a benchmark for where we'd be. I think we said in the preview show that these would be the real test, and I know I had said for a while, even before we sort of went on the run that we did and picked up points where we did. I think it was after Huddersfield where I said, you're looking at the next couple of games, there are games that we should be winning irrespective, just because of the natural talent of the players that we've got. You would expect those players to be capable of going out and putting on a performance against those teams. And I said that from Stockport onwards is a real test and an indication of where we are as a football team. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it looks like we're leaving a lot to be desired. Ben, your opinion is highly requested by some of the people in the chat this evening. And I know you've had a few pelters on Twitter over the last couple of weeks. Fire away.
Yeah, it was awful. There's no getting around it. Look, don't worry about there. None of that tonight. There's nothing you can defend from yesterday. It was from the start playing a team that played midweek. We didn't play midweek. We had a full week's rest, a week from, half a lineup against Walsall as well. So basically a week and a half's rest. Yeah, whatever. We might not train well. There might be a few illness in camp, but who cares? We had a good enough team to go out and compete at the bare minimum. And we didn't. It was probably 5 minutes, 10 minutes, if that, in the first half, where we had a couple of crosses in the box, a couple of corners, and that was about it. Like, we probably should have been 1-0 down before we went 1-0 down. They had a couple of good chances. And yeah, just terrible defending. Terrible defending from Forrester for the first goal. And then we got to half-time 1-0, and me and my dad both turned to each other and just went, well, it can't really be much worse than that. The only positive is it's only 1-0 because it should have been more. And then we came out, and after a minute, it was 2-0, and then 3-0 after 5 minutes, and it was game over. And yeah, look, I mean, you can get away with them type of performances maybe once a season, which he has done in probably the Wigan games and maybe twice last year with Blackpool away, maybe. If the end result is we finish on 87 points, and the year before we finished in the playoffs where we meant to, and the year before that we finished sort of mid-table first season back in League One. But that's now, 14 games in, and that's 3 games already where we've come up against teams that are in and around.
Okay. They're okay teams, aren't they?
Well, Huddersfield and Birmingham, we didn't lay a glove on them, and the same on Saturday. My thing has always been in the big games, against better teams, whatever you want to call them. We've always been at the very least competitive. I genuinely can't remember many games coming up from League One where we've basically not had a chance. And it's, on another day, maybe we could have nicked something. But those 3 games, you could repeat them about 100 times and maybe 3 or 4 times we nick a point in any of the games. But so, like going back to when we first came up, when we played sort of like Plymouth, Ipswich, Sheffield Wednesday, Rotherham, kind of, you could tell they were a class above still, but we still had moments where you think, oh, if that had gone out differently, we could have got a point there. But yeah, there's just genuinely no way we could have got anything yesterday and against Huddersfield and against Birmingham. So 14 games gone, it's happened 3 times already, when maybe once or twice in previous years. It's silly to think it won't happen again. And look, it is one of them, because the league is so bizarre that somehow, if we beat Blackpool, we go 4th. I don't know how that is possible with the start we've had. But it is an opportunity for someone else to come in, and look, our squad is good enough.
It's possible. It's possible, Ben, because the league's poor. The league isn't as good as people think it is. You've got a little. The like you said before, the lower to mid to lower end tables have improved slightly, but the overall quality of the league isn't as good as what was expected at the beginning of the season. And this is why it's a vital opportunity and a vital time that we utilize this and get a new manager in place who can basically rescue our season, because as it stands at the moment, we're going nowhere in a poor league.
I mean, at the minute, I think we're on for probably playoffs, and then do we back ourselves to do anything in them? Probably not.
We should be competing at the top.
I know exactly. No, I know. No, I agree. But I mean, sort of in terms of the quality of the league, it's hard to measure anyway. But I think last season's top 4 would probably be all top this season if they were put in individually. And then 5th down, I think the league is probably a little bit better. But like, it's no excuses. We should be at least competing with the times we've been battered this season.
And Daryl, finally over to you. How did you feel after yesterday's game? Where's your head at? Obviously, people will be rather familiar with our thoughts and feelings on the situation as it's developed and as things have gone on. But where do you stand?
Well, I don't disagree with any of that, to be perfectly honest. So far as the game was concerned on Saturday, it was clearly a capitulation. It was terrible. There were almost no redeeming features. I actually felt a bit sorry for Josh Sheehan, actually, if I was going to kind of extend some sympathy somewhere, because I thought actually he had an okay 40 minutes, an hour perhaps, but everything around him was appalling. And okay, look, we can see this in the context of the last 6 weeks, 2 months, which was a good run. We answered some questions in the aftermath of the Huddersfield game. I felt like obviously the competition that we faced, with the exception of Birmingham, we should have been beaten. So I don't think I don't think that you get, it's not, it wasn't point completely made until we started to play some better teams, i.e. Stockport. And I would have liked to have seen us play better against Birmingham, or at least set up differently against Birmingham. Obviously we set up to defend and that fell apart within the first 3 minutes. So, that is what it is. But, if we take that out of the equation, it feels to me as though we'd answered a few questions. Then comes along Stockport. And I also feel like, the one thing that's sort of niggling at me insofar as how this contributes to how we feel about Ian Everett's management of the club is that I'm not 100% sure what I would have done drastically differently, really. Like sort of tactically. I mean, if you want to, we could have set up and tactically completely differently. We could have played an entirely different team, right? Yeah, we could have done those things. But was there something sort of like so screamingly obvious? I'm not sure if McAtee really works in that position behind the two. That's probably a problem. I don't hate the idea of Charles and Victor up front together. We have had a good run of Charles coming off the bench and hitting a tired defence and all that sort of stuff. But actually, how long can you keep your top goal scorer as an impact sub? I'm not really sure that's actually sustainable, to be honest with you. So I think starting him at some point was probably an inevitability. And so I come away from Stockport and I think maybe George Johnson has a point, and this is not me letting Ian Evatt off the hook by and large, because I think all of those problems that you talk about, there are systemic problems with Ian Evatt's management of this football club at the moment, and I'm going to come on to. I do have a point I want to make about the way that he's kind of set us up pre-season. But I do wonder, coming away from Stockport, I do wonder if actually what we saw there was a collection of terrible individual performances. Matese isn't a bad player, but what the hell was he doing to give that goal away, right? Charles isn't a bad player, but he was, largely absent. We know that Forrester can play. As has been made, a point has been made a million times. These players they're not awful. I mean, there are some that are better than others. We've recruited in some places better than in other places. But that kind of a performance for me was much more about individual errors, lack of commitment from some of them just lacking energy. And I wonder, I know it's an excuse, I'm probably going to get criticism for it, but I do wonder if maybe the bug in the camp this week played a bigger role than we, given the fact that we're quite angry about where we are right now, are going to allow them to get away with. It's the sort of thing that, at the end of a weekend like this, when we're feeling the way that we're feeling, it's not the sort of thing that we're gonna let them, get away with as an excuse. But I do wonder if it played a bigger role in it. But it doesn't.
It's a mentality, Daryl. That's the issue. It's a mentality. The players are, like we said, they're good enough. McAtee played as a 9 or a 9.5 last season for Barnsley and ripped it up. Do you know what I mean? He can play in that hole. As a collective, the mentality in them games is just way off the mark. It's happened so many times in the past, and
I guess that speaks to when you're two down, in particular, and you go, right, well, where's your leadership? Who's grabbing this game by the scruff of its neck and getting it over the line? Who was captain yesterday? It was George Johnson, wasn't it? For the most part. We have a lack of leaders. We have a lack of leadership. And what you need when you are 2-0 down at a tough place to go like Stockport on a wet Saturday afternoon is somebody who's going to grab that game by the scruff of the neck and take it over the line. And maybe that is where it does extend to Everett. What is Everett telling them at halftime? A lot of people keep making this point about Everett's press conferences when we were on a really bad run at the start of his tenure in League Two, and he was saying, and he was coming out and saying things that were getting him in trouble. He was saying, "I'm not going to be here very long." If he had fight, he had the bit between his teeth, didn't he? He had fire in his belly, and I just wonder if that ever is missing as well at the moment, and maybe that's contributing to them not being able to get to pull a game back from.
Maybe he's starting to question himself at the level. Maybe that might be it, possibly.
I think that's probably. I think he probably is. Yeah, I think he probably is. But that is. I'm getting a bit of criticism for mentioning the book. I appreciate. I accepted that.
I'm glad you mentioned it and not me.
I accept that. I accept that, and I did heavily caveat it with it isn't the sort of thing that you buy, is it? When you're in a situation like this,
no,
it isn't. And I think I would probably have more time for that argument if in that good run that we'd had, we'd beaten 2 teams that were in and amongst it that were better, right? Or if we'd at least had a go at Birmingham. Right?
There was a red flag in that fixture list, Daryl, as well. You're absolutely right with that, but also we dropped points to Shrewsbury at home in that run. Mm-hmm. That's a red flag. That's an indication that it clearly wasn't all,
Yeah, but
was it?
I think you can allow drop points in one game that you expect to win out of sort of 7. Really.
You've had such a poor start to the season, Ben. You can't. It's unacceptable. We shouldn't be dropping any points at home to Shrewsbury. Full stop.
Well, yeah, you shouldn't. But in isolation, you shouldn't. But over a 7 or 8 game span, if you drop points to one team that you should be,
that's a red flag. Referencing what Daryl's saying in terms of the fixtures and the fact that I think he said earlier on that it went well, but it didn't go as well as it could have, and that's a red flag in that fixture list. We dropped points at home to Shrewsbury, who at the time were bottom of the league or whatever they were.
Yeah, no, yeah, I agree. In isolation, it's unacceptable, but you're not going to go through a whole season beating everyone you expect to beat. I know what you mean, but yeah, I think on its own, it's really bad. But as a collective, the run was good enough in that. I think we got more points than most people would have expected during that run, basically since Huddersfield. But look, yesterday, no one did it all.
We answered questions about attitude and commitment, I think, in that period, right? Like whether ever answered questions about tactical decision making, about all that sort of thing. I think that kind of are these guys playing for him? Do we have the drive and the commitment and the wherewithal to grind results out and to get this season back on its feet? I do think we answered some of those questions, with the exception probably of those drop points And certainly, I mean, I guess just write Birmingham off, I suppose. Although I would have approached it differently. But you're right. They were against lower opposition. They were against opposition that you should be beating, and so you've got to take it in context.
Absolutely, I think I do agree with you that the questions of the players' commitment and probably playing for the manager were answered. You look at Matete knee sliding when we won the penalty against Peterborough, and even the performance against Peterborough. I think that answered those questions, but there are still serious question marks that remain unanswered. And
Cole, you're shaking your head, but if they're not committed and they're not up for it after 24 shots against Peterborough, do you not think they'd give up and go, oh, whatever, sack it off? They won't still be fighting.
Peterborough played poor that game. They were terrible.
Who?
Peterborough. They were awful. As good as we were, Peterborough were terrible. They relied on the goalkeeper.
Yeah, but you're only as bad as the team you're coming up against is good, aren't you? Really?
Yeah, but we can't be saying, they've got a good attitude because Matete is sliding on his knees celebrating and winning in the 99th minute. That is going to do.
No, but it shows they were up for it and still up for the fight and still up for fighting.
Of course, they're up for it. The professional footballers are going to want to win every game.
But
It's what goes on before the game and at half time that's the issue here. With what, like Daryl said before, said before, in terms of the mentality and what he's telling them at half time, this is where the issue lies. It's what they're getting fed.
It can't be. I don't know. It can't be one time on, one time off. I don't know how that works. Did they just choose not to be up for it one game? As in, I don't think it's not a consistent problem. We did answer questions about playing for the manager and being committed and stuff, but anyway, we're going off on a tangent.
I have no doubt at all
over them 8 games.
I have no doubt at all that they're playing for him. Yeah. I've got absolutely no doubt at all. And I think what you saw from George Johnson was actually him coming out, and the players, as he said, the players said that they sent the management team out of the dressing room and had a chat amongst themselves, and then they came out and said that, and clearly the players have had a go at each other, as right they should, actually, because there were some individuals who massively let themselves and their team down on Saturday afternoon. And if I was in that team, I would be very angry with a number of my teammates and the way that they performed. But what you saw from George Johnson there was the team protecting the manager, right? That was a strategy. There was a concerted effort on George Johnson's part, as the captain on that occasion, to come out and say, we as players are taking completely responsibility for this, and trying to sort of build a wall around Ian Evatt. That says a lot, because that doesn't happen a lot in football, right? Actually, very often if in situations like this, more often than not, the players will sit back and be more than happy to allow the coaching staff and the manager to take the heat, whether they believe that they deserve it or not. So I think what we got a glimpse of there is a camp that is absolutely united and is trying to work for the manager and probably have a good relationship with each other. And a good relationship with each other is sometimes having a difficult conversation with each other after a game like that. I have no qualms about that whatsoever. I think the big question marks. Well, I do have a big point to make about Ian Evatt's management.
The question is,
I'll come to it in a bit.
Why does it keep happening?
Right. Well, yeah.
They can back him they can back him till the cows come on, can't they? But it keeps happening. Like Ben said before, it's happened 3 times this season.
Yeah, of course. The question was,
and many more previous seasons as well, with the majority same players.
Yeah,
so that's the question. It's why does it keep happening?
Yeah, and I suppose you could argue that people have bad days at the office. I think there's probably a combination of things happening there that mean that they are behind him and support him, but occasionally they fall short and look as though they're not playing for him, and that's because I think in some instances, as I know that you've discussed on this podcast before, I've heard it before. I think that they're overcoached. Some of them, I think, some of them are average players. George Thomason himself, I think, said. I think it was actually after the Huddersfield game, he came out and he said, look, we're trying to do really complicated patterns of play here. We're working really hard. We work around the clock, Monday to Friday, on these really complicated patterns of play. Well, don't. It's not a good idea. You're in League One. What are you talking about?
Well, the basics aren't right.
Back to basics.
We gave the ball away so many times yesterday, and it was just simple things. And if you can't get them right, there's no point playing, the expansive pattern football, as you're saying.
So I don't think it's that they're not playing for him. I almost think it's like they're playing for him too much, right? They're almost listening to him too much. They're not trusting their instincts as footballers. They're not footballers for no reason. They're footballers because they've got an instinctive ability to play football. They know where to put the ball, where their teammates are. They know how to drive the ball forward. They know how to, they know when to sit off. And you don't want them to just go out there laissez-faire and just do whatever, gung ho, Owen Coyle-esque, where I don't think they trained during the week. They just sort of stuck them out on a Saturday afternoon and went for it. But they are overthinking every move, and that's a big part of the problem. And I think that was kind of present a bit on Saturday as well. It almost felt like they weren't just trusting their instincts to make the right ball, to make the right pass, to make the right run. And so I don't think they're not playing for him. I think they're almost playing for him too much.
An interesting point. Ian, you've just signed up to become a channel member. Thank you very much. We'd like to welcome channel members on a more positive note, but thank you very much all the same. I think we should probably head away from post-match reactions and try and talk about something else. And what better spirit to do it in than coming up with a nice man of the match award. Now, as I say every time that these performances come around, we are unfortunately, or fortunately, contractually obliged to do this segment. As much as we would prefer to bin it off some weeks and just go, we'll skip that part and pretend it doesn't happen.
We've had that conversation and comment a few times this season, haven't we, Ben?
Yeah, we have. We
get rid of the manager.
So I feel awful having to say this, but please get your comments in the chat about who gets your man of the match award, and try and keep it to actual players who did play for us, and we'll do our best. Ben, do you want to go first, mate?
I mean, I don't know if we can do this, but I've seen it a few times in the chat. But the fans, because they've most of them are away season ticket holders that go no matter what, and
good point.
Mental, but fair play to you. And the rest of them are ones that set an alarm for the Tuesday morning and got on the website straight away to get a ticket, all excited, and then was served up that. So anyone that went and stayed for longer than the first half, fair enough. But if we can't have the fans, we'll have a chat afterwards, see if we can do a graphic of that. If not, then it's Baxter, really, and he kept us in it first half. Even for their second goal, made a really good save. He just landed to Calhoun, didn't it? But look, I'm not going to dwell too much on a man of the match. It's hard to pick one out. I thought, similar to the Huddersfield game, actually, was it Huddersfield or Exeter? I can't remember. Where Osei Tutu came on, he looks okay. But, yeah, look, there's slim pickings in. As you said, Josh Ian was okay for the first half, maybe. I feel like he got on the ball. I feel like he got on the ball too deep, to be fair, and they were happy with the spaces between Sheehan and the attack, and basically just let him have the ball and say, try and find someone. So, yeah, Baxter, if we have to have one. Kept us in the game for as long as he could.
Imagine letting 5 goals in and being man of the match. I mean, how bad is the team?
Very is the answer. Yeah.
Daryl, who gets your vote?
Yeah, I said earlier, I think probably Josh Sheehan, out of pity, really, more than anything else. I think you're absolutely right. He got the ball probably too deep more often than not, but at least he got on the ball and tried to make a few things happen. I think he found some decent passes that were very quickly thwarted and very quickly didn't go anywhere. So I don't think there's. I mean, I'm not actually sure. I sort of understand the Baxter call, but I'm not sure I can give it to a goalkeeper after he's shipped 5, regardless of whether they were his fault or not. To be honest, so reluctantly, probably Sheehan.
Carl,
Baxter, just because it would have been 7 if it weren't for him, because he made 2 saves in the first half that were pretty decent. Appalling. Thank you very much for, or to, should I say, iHeat for sponsoring this segment. Of course, the reason why we have to do that, I keep seeing people saying pointless segment, move on. Like Ben said before, we're contractually obliged to do so. And I hate you're an absolute set of legends. So thank you for that.
They are indeed, although something does make me think we should approach it with a different proposition next season.
Right, I don't think we'll have a man of the match sponsor next season if
no, perhaps not.
Like this. Yeah.
Perhaps not. My vote would be Sheehan. Very reluctantly awarded to Josh Sheehan. So we have a tie break, and we'll probably just decide amongst ourselves.
Give it to the fans, like Ben said.
The
fans can have it.
I think the fans might have this one. We don't like making a habit of that, but I think you'll all agree with us that that's probably the best choice. So we'll move swiftly on, and hopefully you can all have a laugh at this. It's our, of course, resident Statman with Get Stat On.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Get Stats On with the Statman. And before we start anything, try and guess the shirt, because this is a beautiful little number, if I do say so myself. But anyway, let's move on. This section of the podcast is of course sponsored by Jen Louise Salmon. Thank you very much for that. And you know the line by now. If you're looking to buy a gaff, give her a bell. In simple terms. It is a lot more complicated than that, but I am just El Statman, and I have absolutely no idea about houses. So let's move on to the football, eh? And of course, I only do league games, so this is quite a while away. 2 weeks, in fact, to when you play Blackpool at home. So this will be quite an interesting encounter, should we say. It's important to note all these stats are taken before their game yesterday against Leyton Orient, because I am a busy man and cannot record after that game takes place. So my apologies, but you can still get the gist. So they've scored 21 goals from 19 XG before the Leyton Orient game, which is, that's not bad at all, that. Pretty decent levels, but they do concede 1.9 goals a game, which is approximately 0.3 more than they score. So, that's not great, is it? Attacking wise, they're quite decent, but coming back, they're not great. So definitely something to pick up on there. They do like to have the ball, and they average about 53% possession a game, which puts them about 6th in the league. So it'll be quite interesting who has more of the ball in this game. And they do create and score quite a lot of chances, as I said before, because they have 5 shots on target a game, which is no mugs. That is decent. But yeah, as I said before, they cannot defend to save their lives, really. They are 18th for saves per game, so, definitely test the keeper. Maybe have a couple shots early on from outside the box, just to see if he's on it or not, early doors. But they are actually decent, or more than decent, at one aspect of defending, and that is pressing, because they are first in the league for possession won in the final third. So you've definitely got to be careful when you're playing out from the back. And going forward, they love a long ball, love a long ball. The first in the league for that. It's quite weird to have two. They're two very different metrics to be first in the league for, pressing and long balls. But anyway, 37 long balls a game. That seems outrageous to me. But yeah, that is a bit mental. So you've definitely got to maybe drop the line back a bit so there's less space in behind, or Keeps has got to be on his line, absolutely bolting it. Well, yeah, bolting it forward. Anyway, we're going to move on to the screenshots now, and we've got 4 today. Statman has kicked on with the editing because he feels quite bad about not being able to include stats from the Leyton Orient game. But anyway, let's move on. So, screenshot 1. Now, this is from the game. They're all from the game against Peterborough a couple of weeks ago when they lost 5-1, which is a bit mental. And the only thing I'm going to say for this one is try and guess the formation. Because I'll be honest, I didn't have a clue looking at it. So I had to check multiple different lineup websites just to check that was right. And it's a 4-4-2. How the hell is that a 4-4-2? I mean, the centre-backs the whole back line's out of position. The midfield's out of position. Even the strikers that probably aren't on screen are out of position. You know what I mean? So you can see that they're not great at forming a defensive structure, which is always good for the attacking team. They overcommit on the press quite a lot. They are good at it, but when they get it wrong, they get it very wrong. And as you can see, they concede 5 goals. Screenshot 2. Now, It happens again. The left back is absolutely pegging it, trying to get back on goal side, and he does not, to put it short. The back four is completely all over the place. I couldn't even tell you who the centre backs are in that picture. So, they definitely have some defensive question marks, you could say. Screenshot 3 now. The left back still isn't goal side. This is from the same little clip as the last one. And, they're basically in the box, so that's just criminal in the first place. And he's actually picking up the wrong man, because that guy is, the guy he's marking now is actually the right back. So it shouldn't be him who's on that. And Peterborough's number 11, who's just on the edge of the box, if you can notice, is his man. So I don't know where the Blackpool winger is, who should be marking that right back. But anyway, he's not there. And this absolutely kills the left back, as you'll see in screenshot 4 now. Also from the same little clip. The winger's blooming wide open, and the left back is still marking the right back, even though he's basically playing as a striker now. So the winger, believe it or not, gets past the ball, and he has quite an easy finish because he's just not being marked. So the key point of all of that is they overcommit on the press. So it might be worth playing a couple of long balls of your own just to completely miss them all out. Or transition will be incredibly key. As soon as you win the ball back, you've got to be looking forwards. There shouldn't be no crappy side-to-side passes in this game. Just straight forwards. This should be like a basketball game if you want to win it, I think. Anyway, when you've got the ball, at least. Maybe when you've not got the ball, you sit in a bit more because they love a long ball, and they might not be able to long ball if you're very disciplined in your structure. But that's all I've got to say. Enjoy the rest of the podcast, and I will see you in a couple of weeks because this is blooming ages away. See you in a bit.
Now, I would normally be pretty optimistic after hearing stuff like that from the Statman. However, it's not really the case this week. So, in an attempt to try and lighten the mood even more, Cole, should we hand over to you for Catch of the Week?
Yeah, I was just going to say, of course, more than happy to run with stats Catch of the Week. Definitely try and lighten the mood a little bit. But I, for once, paid absolutely no attention to that whatsoever. Mainly because I think that's not no slight on Callum at all. He does a great job, and are usually really engrossed in what he's saying because he calls it a lot of the time. But if Ian Everett's in charge against Steve Bruce, I know he's going to come out on that tactical duel, and especially given what he's just said, the bits I did pick up on, in terms of the press, in terms of the fact that he says that really it shouldn't be a side-to-side game, which is obviously something that we've become very much accustomed to. We need to get rid of him before that game. But yeah, let's lighten the mood. There's been a few interesting posts this past 24 to 48 hours, mainly 24. There's been a few references of electrolytes, which I thought I'd pay reference to in the graphic in front of you. I want to talk to you all, and of course, people in the chat, I guess more importantly, because I'm really keen to understand who you think should replace Ian Evatt if he was to leave Bolton Wanderers. But a few people have, of course, been calling for former Plymouth manager Schumacher, and of course, recently departed Coventry manager, who seem to be in everyone's preference potentially to take over from Ian Evatt. I'll start with you, Daryl. I'm very keen to get your thoughts. Have you got anybody in mind if, and I use the phrase if, Ian Evatt was to leave us?
Well, I think you've mentioned, I think, okay, what would be the point at this point of getting rid of Ian Evatt? Well, it would be trying to get out of League One, wouldn't it? Right? It would be having somebody who can get us out of this league. I mean, it's obvious point to make, but
we all want, isn't it? Yeah,
that's the plan, right? And I think I was earlier just going to make a broader point about Ian Evatt and about this as well, and I'll just attach it on here because Ian Evatt said something about the way that he set this club up, the team up at the start of the season, in an interview with Radio Manchester or somebody, I think, and he said that they had recruited for the Championship, right? And you might have made this point before, and this might be an obvious point, but I think that's a really big part of the problem, right? Which is that we've recruited technical players who can play a style of football that might work quite well in the Championship, but haven't attacked the actual objective in front of us, the job in front of us, which is to get out of League One, right? So if Ian Evatt comes unstuck on that basis, then you're looking at somebody who's got a proven track record of getting us out of League One, and I think Schumacher's probably therefore the guy. He's probably the one that amongst that pack that I look at that kind of excites me a bit, at least, that sort of makes me feel like it would be an improvement on where we currently are. I think one of the big problems you've got is that Ian Evatt is so intrinsically linked to the club and to the structures within the football club that you've got to kind of untangle all of that mess. And a new manager's got to come in and really rebuild. We're not a transactional club, right? Like we have players who we have a structure that's really built around Ian Evatt and the way that he does business, and so you would have to make a lot of changes. And I wonder if this season would therefore be a write-off. And is that the right thing to do? You might as well just sort of see it through with Ian Evatt, give him half a chance until maybe later in the season or at the start of next season, giving somebody like Schumacher a shout. But for me, it will be somebody who can do what Ian Evatt just hasn't done strategically this season, and that's get the job done in League One. Yeah,
no, absolutely. My own personal opinion would be, I think a lot of it, like you've just said, it does point towards whether or not the player coming in can adapt to the players at his disposal. That's important, I guess. But of course, having somebody who's seen it and done it, of course, Schumacher has. I think Alex Neil got a promotion as well, didn't he, out of a League One at the same time, so he could be an option.
Just on that, kind of. Sorry, go on. I'll let you finish, and then I'll.
No, go for it, Ben. I was going to move on anyway, so yeah, go for it.
I just see whenever a so-called big job comes around in League One or League Two, Championship, whatever, the first thing that everyone goes to is, we just need someone who's been there and done it. And 8 of the last 9 managers to get promoted out of League One had never got promoted out of League One before, and 7 of them had never had a promotion on their CV at all. Alex Neil was the only one. So, is it not a bit outdated to just go, let's just go and get the guy who's been promoted out of League One so many times just because he's done it at another club? Or
well, I'm not. That's why I'm referencing Schumacher. He's only done it once, hasn't he?
Yeah, but
and he was very much an unknown when he was at Plymouth.
Yeah. So do we not need to go get the next guy? Is the thing to not get the next Kieran McKenna or the next John Messinio or the next Des Buckingham or the next Steven Schumacher or the next whoever, Paul Warne at the time when he first did it with Rotherham? Is it just going? I feel like clubs have got smarter than just go, let's just get the guy who took them up last season. Like
maybe
it's the same with like the Premier League. We kind of did. I'm going off in a bit of a tangent here, but it was the same 4 or 5 managers that got put in January when a team was bottom of the league, and they were there because they knew how to keep a team up. So, Alan Sam Allardyce or whoever else, Tony Pulis or whatever. But where does that actually get you? Say if we get someone in who gets us up, who does everything we can to get us up, and he has the credentials to do so. We get there, and then it's the summer, and we go, right, what do we do now? Because
it needs to be a combination of two. It needs to be someone with experience and who can build the club as well.
And if you look at Schumacher being the obvious person to talk about here, he so far hasn't cut it. He didn't.
Yeah, exactly. What's the point of getting us up if when he gets to the championship, he repeats what he's done and just?
Well, Stoke are a very volatile club, aren't they? Let's be honest with you. Like Stoke isn't really the reference in that. I don't think. I think if you were at more of a stable club who tend to stick with the managers through a bit of more thick and thin, then you might be able to kind of point that reference, because I think a lot of people looked at that and thought Schumacher was quite unlucky to get sacked as well at the time. But
yeah, maybe. But
I actually think there's an elephant in the room here, by the way, which is that I actually think Ian Evatt could be a very good Championship manager. I think he plays the style of football, has attributes that would probably actually work really well in the Championship. I almost feel like we should bring, in an ideal world, we bring Schumacher in, let him get the job done this season, and then give Ian Evatt a chance in the Championship.
Yeah. There's shouts anyway. There's shouts. There's plenty of managers out there. Like Scobala's one potentially from Lincoln. We could quite easily go and steal him. Company, for example. There are managers out there.
Jake, if you're listening, they are not the views of the Fanzone podcast.
Well, the views of probably 90% of other Bolton fans that Bolton can get Lincoln. that Bolton can get Lincoln City's manager. Like, let's be honest. I'm only saying what people are probably thinking. Anyway, we'll move on. I thought Will Jones' comment was interesting. I think you pointed this one out to me, Ben, didn't you? When you said about prior to the game, he tweeted this at 5 minutes past 12 on Saturday morning, or Saturday afternoon, should I say, saying, knowing us, we could either win 5-0 or lose 5-0 today, and I've absolutely no idea which one it's going to be. Probably the latter. Hopefully not, you whites. And Will, I hope you put that fiver on that one, pal, because that was a call and a half.
I remember seeing it. And thinking, "Oh, come on! It's a bit. I know we're charity wanderers and everything, but it's a bit dramatic, that, isn't it? We're not going to lose 5-0." Yeah, there we go.
There we go. Obviously, got to give a bit of homage to Stockport fans trying to wind us up. Obviously, utilising our mate Thogden for his Real Madrid shouting at the Real Madrid fans to settle down. Of course, it's just football, lads, and yeah, winding us up on that one. Fair play to whoever that was. I don't know what his handle is. I can't see it, but never mind. Yeah, fair play to the lad. Obviously, it was pointed out prior to the game that we had pretty poor selection of socks, according to Stockport's media team. I think that's fair to say, innit, given the result. It definitely were. It wasn't just the socks that were SHITE. For those who haven't seen that, yeah, we're not that podcast, so I can't swear. Ben will shout at me, but yeah, the socks weren't getting much loving before the start of the game. And last but not least, I think the guy called Patrick has referenced our Polish friends. This is hilarious. Some Bolton fan put at 58 BWFC. Can I stop seeing effing Poles, Poles, of course, about ever in or out? And Patrick put 50 Cent meme saying Polish people right now. For those who haven't seen that, jump on it. It's funny. And yeah, up the electrolytes whites, as we say. But yeah, happy days. Bit of a smile anyway.
Well, we'll round off this evening's episode with the Fanzone Fan Focus, which we'll hand over to Ben. And just try to remember in the chat that we although we may not have the exact same opinion on every single situation, we are all trying to be as fair and as, impartial perhaps sometimes as possible. So just bear in mind before you comment, we are just trying to cheer you all up a little bit. But Ben, we'll hand over to you for Fan Focus.
Yeah, to be honest, most of the response to the Fan Focus was just frustration, which, I mean, usually after a loss, there's more to talk about in terms of, the shape or who should have played or was the ref rubbish or we should have scored this chance. But yesterday, there was none of that. It was all just frustration, really. We have touched on it, but I just want to point out Jordan's comment. He just went, I don't want to sound awful, but the interview last night from the captain was weak. Just accepting being beat 5-0, the old accountability excuse. Do we have a leader while Thomason's out? And I just want to touch on that because, we've talked about bad luck loads of times, but to change the captain and then to lose the captain and the vice captain to injury within about a month is a bit unlucky. But having said that, it is, isn't it? Johnson's the fourth choice captain at the minute, isn't he really?
Yeah, but Ben...
There's no excuses. No, it's no excuses. I'm just saying. He's appointed a new captain and a new vice captain. They both got in.
How important are captains? Let's be honest. I think it's a lot of.
Well, I don't know. It was flavour of the month 2 months ago, wasn't it? That it was the most important thing.
Anyway, no, it wasn't even back then, though.
That's past the point. Does anyone want to take the floor? Do we have? I know we've mentioned it before. Is the lack of leaders a problem within the squad, or do you think it comes from the management and the staff, perhaps? Anyone want to take that on? Go on, Cole.
I just think you employ the manager as the figurehead of the team, the one that leads the lads out from the start, and leads them out from the second, from halftime onwards as well. I don't think that at professional level a captain is as important as people say it is, per se. But in terms of leadership, we haven't got a great deal of leadership, have we? Let's be fair. And that's evident in these poor results that we keep getting. That's my opinion.
I would also say that I think it also speaks to I also think it speaks to squad balance in a way as well, right? Because in a healthy squad, traditionally you would have a recruit in there who isn't necessarily technically the best football player, right? But is a bit of a bruiser, doesn't mind clattering into somebody if things are feeling a little bit stale. He's got a bit of experience, maybe coming toward the end of their career, and is there to do exactly what we said earlier that we didn't do against Stockport, which is grab the game by the scruff of the neck and drag it over the line. It's a bit of a red flag for me that the only alternative to Santos appears to have been somebody who is very young in George Thomason, right? Yeah. And is very much at the start of his career. And I think he's a clever lad, George Thomason. He's proven himself to be a very clever lad. Clearly reads the game very well, got a really bright future ahead of him, whether you think he's brilliant right now or not. But where is that old head, that bruiser, that somebody
we had Carl Henry, didn't we, Daryl, if you remember back? Carl, he was a perfect example, weren't he?
Yeah, a Carl Henry, somebody who's sort of willing to get stuck in, clatter somebody if they need to, lead from the front, is not technically the most gifted, but is a physical player, and who knows how to rally troops when you need them. And we just haven't recruited that person because as I say, we've recruited for a technical championship style of football.
Just on that as well, with regards to the interview, I know we touched on it about how he's come out and basically said it's all on the players. Does that put the board in an awkward situation now? Because if they immediately after the game thought, right, that's it, we need to cut ties, and then they hear the captain from the day say all the players are behind and it was totally their fault, does that put them in a weird position where if the manager goes, the players are going, hang on, we've just come out and said we're behind him, whatever, it was all our fault, then where do you go from there? Is that
the evidence should be the next steps should be based on the results, and the results
of course, but
regardless of what the players are saying.
Yeah, but does that not?
It would definitely. I think it would definitely play into the board's decision, though, when the players are so vocal and have been on the 2 occasions where we've lost so significantly. When the players have defended the manager, I think that would give the board another thing to think about. The last thing they want to do is to bring somebody else in that the players have absolutely no relationship with.
Maybe this is why, Daryl, he hasn't appointed an experienced pro who will tell him straight and put it out. Maybe he wants a team full of yes men who are going to stick up for him, and basically are a bit weak in terms of like their attitude in front of the media and on the pitch and whatnot. Maybe he wants a team of yes men, essentially.
I think that's one way of looking at it. I think it's probably more strategic error really than that, to be honest with you. I think it's just the football division of this football club has adopted the wrong strategy for this season, right?
Step,
basically. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's, I actually think that George Johnson saying what he said has saved him actually this week. I do. I think if there was a feeling amongst the boards, and I don't know whether this is Sharon's decision anymore, actually, by the way, because, everybody talks about Sharon, but, I'm not actually sure whose decision this would necessarily be. Probably hers at a push, but she would certainly have to consult, I think, with other members of the board, of the shareholders. If there was a wavering, I think that George Johnson has put that fire out at least for a couple of weeks. Because let's be honest, as we know, there's a huge amount of loyalty to Ian Evatt. We've been in this scenario before. This is different, but we've been in this scenario before where we were calling for his head, as I was calling for his head at the start of his tenure in League Two. I thought he was the wrong person, and we were proven wrong. And I think that Sharon and the board have that win under their belt, and I think that they feel like they can do it again. I think they can prove that point again. If they were wavering, I think you're absolutely right to say that there's another consideration now, which is, are you going to get rid of a manager and make an entire camp of footballers unhappy about it?
Exactly. If it's a lot of footballers that are backing a manager, and then he goes and they're all, I don't know, they all react badly, and another guy comes in who's the complete opposite, and they all of a sudden don't want to play for him. Like, that's a much bigger problem at that point, isn't it?
I'd say the biggest problem for the board, when all said and done, and I've seen this a few times on social media, but I've had messages sent to me as well. When people stop showing up and stop spending money and start cancelling the season ticket direct debit or whatever it is, that's when it'll become a problem for the board. And no matter what the players say, when it becomes a financial, that's when they'll have a problem.
Yeah, of course. But look, we've been getting 20,000 every week. We've sold out every away game. I don't think
we've not, though, have we, Ben? We've not been getting 20,000 every week. We have in terms of the ticket sales. Let's be truthful about this. Yeah, we sold X amount of season tickets. My son has got a season ticket because it was cheap for me to buy him a season ticket for 50 quid. As a toddler, he comes to 3 games a season. It counts him as a season ticket holder who turned up on that day.
Your money's still going in their pockets, isn't it, really?
We've not been selling the tickets. That's what I'm saying to you, that people think we have. So we say we've sold 20,000, 22,000, whatever it is. It's always less than that. The actual figure's less than that. So when that number starts to dwindle again, Ben, which it will do if it carries on the way it's going, yeah, that's where they'll have a problem. Regardless of what the players say.
Yeah, I agree. It's never the number it says on the thing, as in actually bums on seats in the stadium, but the number is how many tickets are sold, and that's how much money's going in their pocket. So,
yeah. By the way, a lot of them on direct debits that'll get cancelled, but people sick of what's going on and not turning up for proper games and getting beat every other week by teams that have just been promoted from League Two.
By the way, I don't think it matters one bit. I don't think they care, to be perfectly honest with you, about that. I think it's for them. I think it's a business. I think as long as the business is operating in the way that it should, and we do need to be results do need to be improving. I think they will see this as a longer term project this season than that. There is disquiet among the fans, but I think that they will feel like it can be turned around, and that a string of results and maybe it's promotion through the playoffs this season or whatever will turn that around. I don't think that they are the same kind of reactionary football people that we see in other clubs. I think I think the point you make, Cole, would probably work for almost any other club, to be honest, or most other football clubs. I don't think that I think they see that as external noise. I don't think they see it as being part of their business strategy.
And what will cost more money, losing, say, 2,000 fans between now and the end of the season, or sacking a manager that's on a longish contract?
And the upheaval that comes with that, and the restructuring that comes with that, and all the other things.
Flip of that, if you appoint the right manager and you get promoted, you get 7-8 million quid for getting promoted. If you don't get that money, and we're stuck in League One again.
Yeah, but
and then next season, people won't buy tickets again. And then next season, people won't buy tickets again.
Yeah,
and then it affects the pocket even more.
They're both hypotheticals, aren't they?
Yeah, really. Of course.
Yeah, I mean, if they keep him, it'll be first and foremost because they think he's the man to turn it around.
Yeah.
So,
but it's playing.
I'm not sure this. I think I understand the argument you're making, Cole, and I think you think it's probably right, but I just don't think they're thinking that way.
No.
Well, the one thing that we can all agree on unanimously is that things need to be very different for the rest of the season, and results like that against Stockport, like that against Huddersfield, cannot continue to happen. I think there is only so long perhaps the board can shut out the noise of the fans before it starts becoming a realish problem. Because, I mean, Everett has admitted himself, and the players have admitted himself, that fans can really dictate the state of games, and they can, dictate the outcome of games at times. And when you lose that, it takes an awful lot to bring that back. But that is this evening's episode of the Fanzone podcast. Thank you all very much for joining us. I think we can do
431 people.
Yeah, we can breathe a sigh of relief. And hopefully we'll be back with you very soon with a little bit more positivity or some updates or whatever it may be. Keep your eyes and ears peeled on our socials, and we will be we're back as soon as we can, and we'll see you all at Fleetwood.
Enjoy Fleetwood. Because I was just going to say that. Enjoy Fleetwood on Tuesday night, everybody.
Right. Thanks for watching. And Daryl, thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate it.
Thanks, chaps. Pleasure.
Cheers, Daryl.
We will catch you all in the next one. Take care. See you all soon.